Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learning. I'm delighted to be joined by a performance coach, an ex-England Rugby international. So Andy Long, welcome to Lunchtime Learnings and thanks very much for joining me.
One pleasure to be here, Stephen.
Brilliant. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into rugby? How did you get to play with Johnny Wilkinson and be managed by Clive Wodward? And then we dissect all of that, if that's okay.
Yeah. So look, I like most kids, I joined mini rugby age of 4 or 5, and loved it. So rugby's been a part of my life since I was very little. And then I just at a state school, a comprehensive state school in Bournemouth. I managed to go through some trials and get to England schools, 18 group, and then rugby turned professional in 1996, 95, 96, just as I was leaving school, having done my A-levels, and I got offered a contract in the academy at Bath Rugby. And so that's it really. So I actually went from being a schoolboy kicking around to suddenly being a kind of loosely termed professional rugby player, because it was very much in the throes of amateurism still, and especially Bath. I think Bath struggled to adapt as quick as other clubs maybe. And so yeah, started that, and it was a wake up call. We lived at Bath University, so trained through that, and that's how I got into professional rugby. It was never something that I thought that was what I was going to do. It was just something that came up through that. I played quite cricket to a high level as well, and it was kind of choosing between which one I was going to go for, and then it was in rugby. And I stayed at Bath for 7 years. I got capped for England at the age of 20 under Clive Wodward. Also got dropped for England at the age of 20 by Clive Wodward, which I guess is a story to be told. And then I played at Bath for 7 years. I left Bath and went off onto a few other clubs, including I played at Munster for a little bit. I played at Newcastle Falcons, where I was fortunate enough to play with some great players there, and then finished my career at Northampton in 2012, where I sort of moved into coaching, but I had a neck injury, so it was a kind of forced retirement. So yeah, I suppose that's a whistle-stop tour, Stephen, of my career to date. Well, to 10 years ago.
Okay, lovely. So thanks for sharing all of that. If I take you right back, so going from coming out of school to becoming a professional, what sort of things did you have to learn pretty quickly?
Well, I think you learn to be reasonably independent. I think you learn to make decisions for yourself. I think that's crucial. And I think that's something in my life that I had to learn anyway. I lost my father when I was 10, to a heart attack. So I think I had to grow up pretty quickly anyhow. So maybe I hadn't had the same upbringing to that point some others that had joined Bath. But I think I learned to be independent. I think I learned that not everyone gets his opportunities. You got to take them. You got to go with it. And also there's ups and downs. I think I quickly learned that I think I always had a good work rate. I think I've always had a good effort, but I knew that you had to be as consistent as you could be every day. And it is going to be a bit of a roller coaster. It's going to be up and down. But if you can consistently apply yourself every day and be able to look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and go, yeah, I've done my best. And you're the only person that really knows that. If you're honest with yourself, you're the only person that knows that. And, some people can kid, it's easy to kid people as well and project that you are, but actually only if you've given your best. So I think that's what I quickly learned. And obviously I had setbacks early on in my career, so which I had to deal with.
Okay, I'm sorry about your dad. I lost my dad as well at a young age. So I know exactly what it's like. And my dad totally inspired me. He had a kidney transplant when he was very young, and he was in and out of hospital for the first 23 years of my life. In fact, Hammersmith Hospital was our second home. And he ended up playing in the Transplant Olympics, which was absolutely incredible.
Wow, amazing.
So amazing. So just coming back, and you talk about up and downs, and obviously this podcast is going out to loads of estate agents. Estate agents have to deal with loads of ups and downs on the road every day. It's a roller coaster. They have some fantastic days, loads of exchanges, loads of lets, and then the next day sales fall through, lets fall through. They don't get the market appraisals and instructions they were hoping to get. What tips can you give to people watching this to deal with those ups and downs?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think for me, it's very easy. I suppose it's very easy to lose perspective when you're under pressure. You're either under pressure. You either feel like if you make a mistake, you're the worst estate agent, you're the worst, the worst rugby player, or whatever it might be in the world. Sometimes also when we're doing really well, like a great sale, or you win a game, sometimes you feel like you're the best. You don't have to train anymore. So when things are going well or not going well, generally we lose quite a lot of perspective of efforts. I think being able to zoom out is really important, and being mindful. I think mindfulness is very important, because between something happening and our response is an opportunity there to be mindful. And generally there's a belief system that's working in there that we need to kind of look at. So I think being able to control our emotions, knowing that we get positive and negative emotions, that's natural. But being able to manage our emotions in the moment is really important then, to be able to mentally stay on track and on task. Now, I think a lot of that then comes down to our physical, how we physically are. So have we rested? Have I exercised? How's my lifestyle in terms of nutrition, hydration? They all help us manage our emotions. Now, I think that, on top of that, I think in that moment, being able to control the things you can control, it's a very obvious thing, and it's often coined in when you're having debriefs, it says, oh yeah, control what you can control, don't worry about other things. But actually, when you're in the moment and you're under pressure, that's when you're the most. And actually, we lose perspective and we lose common sense. So being able to access that in the moment and be able to control our attention in the moment, I think is crucial to high performance and how we can stay that level of perspective, which we often lose. And I think that's through experience. Like anything, I think the more you practice something, the more you stress yourself, the better, and then recover, the better you can grow. Unless you put yourself into those positions where it's uncomfortable, you don't get the opportunity to grow. It's like a muscle, right? You don't train it in the gym, it doesn't get bigger. If you don't allow it to recover, it tears and it breaks down and you get injured. So too much stress can cause a response which we don't want. Too little, also the same. So there's a sweet spot, I suppose, of pressure or slightly comfort zone to be able to grow. And I think that's where we can grow physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually as well. So I think that's my take on it. I think that perspective, things are going to come down the track as well. I think realizing that things aren't always going to go your way and how you deal with it. So the more you can plan for that and prepare for that, I think is good. The market's going to be really buoyant sometimes and it's going to go flat. It's going to go buoyant again. We know that. So it's, how do you prepare for the things that you can predict, is going to come down the track?
Okay, lovely. So cool. There's loads to unpick there. We met a couple of weeks ago at an estate agent's, and one of the ladies there felt very uncomfortable doing video, and she then managed to do a video with a little bit of gentle persuasion where she was exceptional. There's going to be other people here that find it very challenging to get out their comfort zone. Again, what tips can you get and can you help for people to get? You talked about being uncomfortable to get comfortable. How do people, what do they need to do to get uncomfortable? How can they do it? Because again, mindset is, they don't want to do it for whatever reason.
It's a great question. I think that with increased performance and wanting to get better at anything comes pressure. Generally, if you want to get better at something, you're going to put yourself under pressure. It then comes down to your individual motivation. I think it comes down to a lot around intrinsic or extrinsic. What's motivating you to want to do it? Knowing that intrinsic motivation is probably more powerful long term than extrinsic. We know that. Fortune, fame, title. But if you've got an internal driver that's going to get you, that's going to help you then push comfort zone. So I think for me that's really it. Getting that meaning behind it. Why is it important to me? And help people go, right, actually, it doesn't have to be a fit, on a percentage. You don't have to challenge yourself 50% harder than where you are now. You only have to challenge yourself maybe 3 or 4% harder. Just a little bit each day gets you better. So it does have to be some managing. I think then the whole feedback loop and talking about that example you gave, how good did that individual feel after they'd done it massively. So I think that I think it's seeing the benefit of it, encouragement from people around. So as leaders, people around you, I think it's creating that environment. But from a driver, it's got to be, I would like to get better. I want to get a little bit better at what I do. And if I do, I know that's going to come with a certain amount of pressure. Making that pressure manageable is the key.
How do you find your way? Why? You talked about your why. How do you find it?
It's a good question again. I think for me, your why, your purpose is deep seated. I think when I've worked this with individuals, you kind of get them to go back and talk about stories of their childhood and things that happened, big moments, what was happening, why was it exciting, what was happening at the time, and then maybe move that into business. Again, it's finding that deep meaning and deep purpose. And also with organizations that I've worked with where we've created purpose and why statements, it's understanding that it's almost the contribution that you make and the impact that contribution has on the world, on other people. It's not about making money, that's what you do. That's a product of what you do. But it's actually more about what's deep inside me. Now, I think creating purpose comes from passion. I think once you understand what you're passionate about, what am I really curious about? What am I passionate about? And then you add curiosity into that mix. And that's all kind of an internal thing. Your passion is quite internal, but turning it into purpose is external. How am I going to use my passion as a purpose for not just for me, but for other people? The impact it's going to have on others. So I think that storytelling is a great thing. I think doing a lot of storytelling with organizations, especially with founders and leaders within the organization, about times in their organizational journey when they've overcome challenges, when it's been great, when it's not been great, how have they gone about it? So actually storytelling, I think, is one of the best ways when I work with organizations now to help them really identify what their purpose is. If you link it back to occasions that have actually happened, and not just, words that mean nothing. So that for me is you've got to go deep into your storytelling.
Okay, so you've obviously worked with a lot of exceptional top performers, been led by some top performers, maybe captain them yourself. What do you think the qualities are that make a top performer?
I think that a top performer in any walk of life, I suppose, has to you got to have a purpose. You've got to be passionate about what you do. I think if you're looking for sustained performance, you look at the people that are consistently have sustained performance and not just one-offs. You go out there, you see a lot of people that win thing or whatever like that. But if you're consistently performing or staying at the top of your game, you've got to have an underlying motivation and a drive and a perseverance. So I think the desire to get better and better every day is important, and being a sponge to learning, not a rock. wanting to really soak up information is important. So I think that real desire to want to get better every day. I think that the ability to adapt, well, I think top performers have an ability to adapt in the moment, and are quite flexible, both physically but also emotionally and mentally, to be able to adapt. And yeah, I think being able to that consistent day in day out drive. So yeah, I think there's some key things. There's obviously lots of ingredients you could talk about in terms of performing under pressure, mindset, staying on task when you need it most. That's clear. When the pressure really ramps up, how to stay on task, others wouldn't. And I know through my career, there's times where that sort of thing affected me. That's why I really enjoy now helping others to help them on their journey.
Well, look, it's a really stressful job being an estate agent. Maybe not as stressful as playing for England at times, but when you're dealing with somebody's biggest tax-free asset and all the emotions, and sometimes logic goes out the window, and understandably so. How can agents deal with stress and deal with pressure?
I think it comes down to, there's a great model called the corporate athlete or the executive athlete. I think that they can learn a lot actually from the way that how we manage our energy, and in terms of an athlete would train and recover all day, and then they'd perform at the end of the week for 1 or 2 hours, or even different in terms of athletes and sprinters and things, and their professional career would be probably 15 years at max, maybe. But with someone who's in an estate agent or anyone in the workforce like that, in office and stuff, they've got to perform every day, 8 hours, right? And then they might get to train and recover at the end of the day for 1 or 2 hours if they're lucky, and that might be passive recovery, not active recovery. And you've got to do that for 40 odd years, 50 years. So our ability to understand that time is fixed, but our energy levels are variable in terms of the quantity and the quality of the energy we have in our day, it realizes that actually the lead point for performance is our energy, not time. Because you can have the greatest diary organization, right? Have it all structured perfectly for meetings. But if you haven't got the right energy systems going, and you've not slept properly, and you're not eaten properly, you're not hydrated properly, you're not using active recovery protocols, then you're not going to show up and be your best. So I think how estate agents can help themselves is by, as athletes would do, oscillating the day. So instead of saying you've got to be just on it the whole day and constant, at the end of the day you kind of like start to fade. You oscillate between bursts of activity and sprinting, and then you back off and you run properly, and then you go again. So you're really focused. And I think by doing that and having that on a bedrock of really good physical, that when you're out on the road, you've got your foods and things like that with you, you're prepared. I think that can keep you much more emotionally stable. So it creates the physical aspect, so our emotional and our mental capacity grow. As we know, if you're rested, your emotions are much more regulated. Internally, you're less reactive. Your belief systems are less irrational. You have probably more empathy, more passion, more tolerant, you're more patient when you're fully rested as when you're not. And that then knocks onto our ability to make good decisions, our mental capacity. So our ability to make good decisions, our ability to stay on task, to keep our attention, for our mindset to focus and positive. And then we align, obviously, into our spiritual, our meaning. Why do we do things? So I think that for me, it's the whole package. It's understanding that actually how I manage my energy in my day allows me to perform at my best. And I think that more agents can probably, and the ones that I work with, we're working quite a lot on this. How do you oscillate your day so that you're active, in flow, as we would call it, in terms of our flow state? When we're at our best, we perform at our best, and we feel at our best. Now, we can train that, but a lot of it comes down to our physical capacities.
Okay, so I know a lot of agents that wake up in the middle of the night with things on their mind about, oh, I've got to do this tomorrow, do that tomorrow. You've talked about energy, you talked about sleep, hydrating, and eating. How do I? Is there a way? Are there any tips that I can sleep better at night, or agents can sleep better at night, and not having to think, oh my good God, wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I never called that person. I need to do this tomorrow.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that obviously there's certain things physiologically to help us go to sleep. So in terms of powering down off devices before sleep, not eating right up before bed, reckon going to sleep at about the same time every day, and up about the same time, so you get into a good rhythm. But I think for something like that, which is obviously more cognitive, how do you finish your day? How do you finish your day in terms of reflecting on your day, writing your list, actually, or journaling at your day? What are the things I need to do tomorrow? What's on my list? And just downloading your list. And what you do in that sense, and even if it's a problem that you've got and you don't have to solve it, there's a great sort of tool called delegating to your subconscious. So if you write that problem down and then you go, right, I'm going to come back to it tomorrow at 9:30. And you write the question down, you leave it and say, right, that's it, leave it. And then you come back to that next morning and you actually write it down again and you start to work through that. You give yourself a block of time to do it. What's happened in that meantime is your subconscious has started working on it, and you're much more likely to actually have come up with a result. So it's actually getting stuff out of your head. I think the more we can get our stuff out of our head and out somewhere, so it's there, decluttering ourselves, and then going through some breath work or whatever it might be to help you get to sleep. I think that helps, and creating a really good ritual around that that you go to. I think is a way of around that when it's very common, isn't it? For a lot of people, waking the night, I've got this stuff on, whatever. But how are you trying to prepare? How do you download everything so that you can use your sleep effectively to recover?
Okay. How do you? So again, I suppose there are a lot of people that struggle with work-life balance, and it's all work, and there's no rest at all. Again, similar tips on that.
I think again, it's about a balance, isn't it? It's about, you often look at, say, 3 spheres that we need to work within: self work and family. And it's about having a good balance in all of them. You've got to kind of just keep tracking back and going, which of these maybe is out of sync, and how am I sabotaging myself? How can I do that? But the easy thing would be to say, all right, okay, well, I'm going to make sure I've got a block of time for my family or myself for exercise. But if you turn up in that spot, haven't got the energy, and you're tired, you're not going to be present in that moment. So it's about really being present. So I think it starts going back to actually our energy. I think it does go back to that. I think how physically are we rested? That allows you then to have a better work-life balance. You get the better emotions in that. But you've almost got to do a little bit of an audit of your values. What's important to you in your life? So if you go, right, how am I living a values-based life as well? So the thing that, important for me, one of my values is courage, right? I think you have to have courage. And if I think, well, how am I displaying courage today? And that might be out of my comfort zone. So when I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe I've not done something, or I've stopped doing something because I've got this inner belief or lack of confidence, I'm thinking, hold on, well, I really believe it. One of my true values is courage. And actually, in what way am I living that in my day? And I've done something that's used courage. So I think back to that and kind of going, well, what are the things that are really important to me in my life? And then just making it really simple and just building one thing you want to do differently, and not trying to boil the ocean. Just have one thing you'd like to do differently to create that. But I think this whole recovery is really important. The work-life balance. Most people will come home and they're on their phones, or they're passively recovering. Where active recovery is where we're actually we are trying to change the state and drop sort of parasympathetic nervous system. So it's more about kind of relaxing as opposed to the sympathetic when working. So if we're just on our phones and scrolling and doing all this stuff, we're keeping stressing ourselves. We've got to find a way of breaking away and actually just completely properly recovering so we can go again.
Okay, lovely. I just want to come back. I've got a couple of questions because I'm conscious of your time, and thank you very much. So you talked about practice, and a lot of people will make excuses. They don't have time to practice. They don't like the word role play. But for me, being a professional, whether a rugby player or you're an estate agent, you're still a professional. You need to have conversations with sellers, landlords, buyers and tenants, and anybody else. You would practice before a game. So you're playing for England as a hooker. You wouldn't turn up on that Saturday against France thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. We're going to win this Six Nations game. You would train really, really hard. What do agents need to understand, or how can they change their mindset that actually, forget the word role play, professionals practice before they play? How can agents be practicing more before they play in front of their customers?
Yeah, I think many things. I think with performance like that, you've got to break it down. A lot of time it's very win or lose. It's very finite in terms of I've won this, so I lose it. But we've got to think about it more as the performance and how do I deal with the process that I've got to go through. So what is my process? What are the skills I need to be able to deploy at their best for the outcome to go the way I hope it will? And we don't necessarily know it will. And so for an estate agent, all you can do is your best, and the scoreboard will look after itself or not. If someone decides to buy or not buy that house, it's nothing you can do about it. All you can do is your process. So I think that practicing is kind of breaking it down into those components of my performance. So what are the key non-negotiable key components of my performance that I need to practice? And I think then it's a lot about visualization and mental rehearsal. I think visualization is so important. Looking ahead and seeing that going really well. What did it look like? And then working your way back. The same for anything like goal setting and goal achievement. We know that visualization really helps. Mental rehearsal, practicing your first 30 seconds of what you're going to say to the client before you go in there, having it there nailed so you can hear yourself saying it. So I think those elements of practice are important for helping you then in the moment stay on task and not maybe let you get. But again, it's got to come down to personal motivation. Why do I want to do it? I see a lot of agents that it doesn't mean enough. And actually, in any profession, it's got to mean something. You've got to really want to do it. You've got to want to get a bit better. And no one's ever got anywhere without any sort of level of sacrifice. And that means that you might have to do some self-development outside of the hours that you normally are working. You might have to. But if you're curious about something, if you're passionate about it, that you find that a lot easier to do. I think practice is important. I think bringing people in that are experts that can help, I think it's important in terms of upskilling the technical side of it, and the skill set side of it. But anything that people are given, you've got to coach to the practice, not theory. The theory is brilliant, but you've got to be able to apply that and practice it. And you know what? Probably fail as well, and actually fall over it, back up and learn. It's that cycle of feedback. So I think they're the top individuals that I work with. They win the practice, but actually it's a practice pitch for a reason. You make mistakes on the practice pitch and you tone your game so that when you are out there, you're at your best. And the more you self-pressure and create scenarios, the better as well. But yeah, I think that practice is important. How you build it into agency is a really interesting concept.
What did you learn from Sir Clive?
I think what Sir Clive Wodward did when he came in and managed the England rugby team is he actually brought a lot of business protocols in terms of professionalizing everything that we did, meetings, you know, and I only just came into rugby after, you know, I'm looking back at it because I couldn't really compare it to anything because it was 1997 and I'd only just become a professional rugby player and it's been amateur. But he brought kind of a professional business side into it. He had specific coaches, specific jobs. You know, there was a lot of review. He just let the professionalism just went through the roof in terms of everything he wanted. Chefs, you know, eye coordination coaches, mental skills coaches. So he really gave rugby player every possible opportunity to be the best they could be as well. So I think that's, for me, that's what he did very well. He had a specific role, but he also had a good team around him of other coaches. And at that period, he had a very good rugby team in terms of the England players he had at that time that went on to win the 2003 World Cup. But you know, leading into the 2003 World Cup, there was a lot of setbacks. There was a lot of games that were lost to get to the 2003 World Cup. So I think he had a very, very clear focus what he wanted to achieve, and he built a very good team around him.
Brilliant. Who inspires Andy Long?
Who inspires Andy Long? I think that I'm lucky to meet a lot of people who I coach, and I'm inspired by anyone that allows themselves to be vulnerable, that allows themselves to be truthful about where they are at the moment, and then takes action. That inspires me. People that allow themselves to be vulnerable, be very truthful about where they are, and they try and integrate something into their life and try and get better. You know, they inspire me. People that go outside of their comfort zone inspire me a lot. And it could be the smallest thing though, Stephen. It could be just one person I work with that changes something about the way they live their life in that day, that they get a good result. And I'm inspired by that. And hopefully they inspire other people. It's like this ripple effect, isn't it? We want to live in a world where people are fulfilled and, you know, purposeful, and living great lives. That's the goal. For me anyway, that's why I do what I do. So yeah, that's who inspire me.
Brilliant. One final question, I promise, because I could keep on going all day. I'm really sorry.
No.
I find this, and you mentioned the word action. So, you know, the best people are the ones that take action and implement it, and maybe fail and learn from it, but take action. How can people just take action?
Yeah, again, I think it comes down to there's got to be a meaning to it. I think that, you know, you've got to find a better, you know, take an action moving forward, and whatever happens from that could be seen as a risk, could be a little bit daunting, but you don't know until you try. And I think that, you know, staying still is not always the best thing to do. We've got to try and be moving and trying things. So I think just, you know, let go of that a little bit and just make it too complicated either by take action. Make it really simple. Even if it's just one little thing that you do differently in your day, that's action. And then if you keep doing those, you're going to build, you know, like say, you know, the old atomic habit stuff, you know, you start to build a small, like atomic sized habit, and they stack on top of each other. So it's another learning for us, because the more we do it, the more we can change the way our brains work, our neuroplasticity, going to be our emotional regulation, our mental capacity, that will be better by just taking one step. It can make a lot of other things sort of escape from that.
Fantastic. I'm really grateful for your time. Thank you. How do people get hold of you, Andy?
Yeah, well, you can get hold of me on my website, www.impact2.co.uk, or on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being a wonderful guest and sharing so much value. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Really grateful. So please like it, share it, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I look forward to presenting the next one to you. Have a good one. Thanks very much. Bye.